Demonstrations by farmers in India, to protest against new agricultural laws, threaten to become the biggest political crisis facing Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his tenure in office. Bowing to farmers' demands and repealing the laws would be an uncharacteristic admission of defeat on the part of India's Prime Minister, who pledged that the laws would reform the agriculture sector. Yesterday, Modi said in a tweet, "We are taking all these initiatives to increase farmers' income and make them more prosperous. The reforms will help attract investment in agriculture, and will benefit farmers." Tens of thousands of farmers imposed a blockade at the entrance to the Indian capital, Delhi. They are ready to continue demonstrating for up to 6 months, against the agricultural reforms that the government has approved in new legislation, which it says will boost economic growth in the country. But it also sparked global outrage for the way the Indian authorities dealt with peaceful protesters, and took on a political, economic, and international character. On the other hand, India responded sharply to the international support for its farmers' demonstrations as relying on false information and baseless, stressing that the whole matter is the internal affair of a democratic country. Over time, the farmers' anger turned into a full-fledged movement against the Modi government, with figures from all walks of life showing their solidarity with them. Critics of the new legislation say that these reforms could lead to exploitation of farmers by large companies. The Minister of State for Agriculture Affairs Kailash Chowdhury confirmed that the most that the government is ready to present is amendments. As the government has done all the time, Chowdhury has sought to blame the feelings of anger among farmers on opposition parties and instigators. Yesterday, farmers organized a hunger strike in locations along the borders of the Indian capital, where they have been in large numbers for 19 days. "We want the laws to be repealed," said Gurbaksh Singh, a protest leader in the northern Indian state of Punjab, where he and other leaders began a hunger strike at a major protest site. But the continuing unrest could cause chaos in food markets, negatively affect consumers, and are likely to impede the post-coronavirus recovery. Writer Andy Mukherjee said in a report published by Bloomberg agency that the dispute centers on the strategy that must be followed. Markets or organizations? This is an old dilemma, adopted by economist Ronald Coase in 1937. Modi favors markets. He has pledged to transform the entire economy into a free trade zone that will benefit 119 million farmers and 144 million farm workers, as well as their families. Regardless of how the problem is ultimately resolved, the protests raise open questions about the course of India's political economy and development model, the role of the state and markets in a sector that employs the largest number of people in the country, and the future of politics in rural India in general. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressed his support for her. Canada will always defend the right to peaceful protest and human rights, Trudeau declared. The situation is worrying and we are all very concerned. Therefore, we have communicated directly with the Indian authorities through various means to highlight our concerns. New Delhi considered that Trudeau's statements on a local issue in India were unjustified, and that the comments constituted an unacceptable interference in internal affairs, and threatened to harm relations between the two countries. Indeed, the Indian government has summoned Canadian diplomats and informed them of its protest against Prime Minister Trudeau's statements. The northern state of Punjab, which is called India's breadbasket, has become the center of anger among farmers, which has led to the suspension of all public services, as protesters closed roads, highways, and railways. The protests spread to a number of states. Punjab comes at the forefront of the wave of anger, as its people were among the main beneficiaries of the Green Revolution in the 70s of the last century, which changed the face of agriculture in India, and with it the lives of farmers within the state. To date, there have been 4 rounds of talks, 2 of which have been attended by a panel of 3 ministers and a few dozen representatives of farmers' unions. What is the secret of farmers' anger? Feelings of discontent among farmers have been raging for many years, and they have occasionally organized massive protest rallies across the country, against what they described as the government's neglect of the agricultural sector amid increasing privatization. Farmers and traders claim that the government wants to stop the minimum price subsidy system in the name of reforms, and they fear the new laws will leave them at the mercy of companies. On the other hand, the government affirmed that the new agricultural laws will bring farmers better opportunities and introduce new technologies in the field of agriculture. Agricultural experts say that millions of small farmers in India have lost their incomes due to the low prices of their crops and the high costs of transportation and storage. Farmers fear that the new laws will open the door to placing the agricultural sector under the control of commercial companies, which the government denies. Farmers are also very concerned that the new agricultural laws passed by Parliament in September will lead to the abolition of the minimum price subsidy system, which farmers have adapted and thanks to which they sell their crops at a guaranteed price. This system is basically a guarantee to farmers if they do not get a better price in the crop markets covered by the system. At that time, the government intervened to buy crops at a fixed price, so this system was being widely viewed as a protection for farmers from loss. For its part, the government affirms that the new laws will liberalize agricultural trade, and give farmers the freedom to sell their products outside the organized markets and enter into contracts with buyers at a pre-agreed price. The farmers, on their part, are seeking guarantees that the government will not end this situation. While farmers want to abolish the 3 agricultural laws and enact a new law that includes a clause ensuring that the minimum price support system is not compromised, the government insists that the system will not be abolished. Figures show that more than half of India's farmers are in debt due to poor harvests. In 2019, 28 people dependent on agriculture committed suicide every day, with 20,638 people committing suicide in 2018 and 2019, according to India's National Crime Records Bureau. After coming to power in 2014, Modi promised to double farmers' incomes by 2022. However, the situation has not improved. The government is currently under pressure to bring in private investment into the agricultural sector, which has been stagnant over the past decades. Farmers are forming a powerful political constituency that supports Modi's BJP. The opposition parties accused the ruling Bharatiya Janata of being biased towards the wealthy and being hostile to farmers. The ruling party denies these accusations, accusing the opposition parties of inciting farmers to demonstrate against the new progressive land reform laws. Political opponents say the Modi government passed the laws in a hurry, without real debate. However, analysts believe that the opposition's support of farmers stems from its desire to use them to stand up to Bharatiya Janata, which has systematically excluded them from positions of political power and influence. The arrogant Modi government did not cooperate with farmers, and it could have avoided farmers' demonstrations and protests if it had adopted a broad-based social consultation process in drafting new agricultural laws through the parliamentary track, analyst Nitin Bay said. However, skipping the journey and jumping to the destination directly resulted in all stakeholders involved in the agricultural sector receiving a shock rather than an explanation, a ready-made decision instead of a hearing, and in many cases, existential concerns rather than positive expectations. In this regard, columnist Jaspert Oberoi said, in an article, that political pressure for the Sikhs is a powerful force in the Canadian political scene. Besides achieving political balance at home, Trudeau also had a vendetta or two that he should settle with his Indian counterpart, Modi. Over the past 6 years, the two leaders have ended up at a crossroads on multiple occasions, particularly in relation to the issue of Canada's failure to respond to India's demands to suppress the voices of the Khalistani, separate land of Sikhs, prevailing in Canada. The constant expression of global concerns continues, at a time when the United Nations expressed its support for the anger prevailing among Indian farmers, stressing that they have the right to peaceful protest, and the authorities must allow them to do so. On the issue of India, what I would like to say there is the same as what I said to others when raising such issues, which is that people have the right to demonstrate peacefully, and the authorities should allow them to do so, said Stefan Dujarric, a spokesman for the UN Secretary-General. In London, a group of 36 parliamentarians from different parties wrote a letter to British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, asking him to file a protest with his Indian counterpart, S. Jaishankar, regarding the repercussions on the British Punjab people as a result of farmers' demonstrations against the new agricultural reforms in India. The Australian Communist Party also expressed its solidarity with the angry Indian farmers.